son, 17, found a sex tape of my wife and I, 35 female and 40 male, and now our kids are freaking out and not talking to us. So to make a long story short, my wife and I have an unconventional sex life, and our teenage son found one of our sex tapes while using my laptop without permission. He has his own computer, so I don't know why he was on mine. My wife and I were sitting at the table going through some bill payments on her laptop, and my daughter, 15, was on her laptop in the living room, which is attached to the kitchen. My son stormed down the stairs and into the kitchen, where he proceeded to start yelling at us over how sick we are. We had no idea what was happening, and our daughter got mad and asked what was going on, and he started yelling about what he found. This set my daughter off, and my wife became hysterical, and everyone began screaming at each other. I was so shocked and embarrassed by what was happening that I just remained quiet at first, but I put an end to the fighting and told everyone to split up and cool off, which they did. I told my wife we should talk about this with them, but she said she cannot possibly face them over how mortified she is. I went to try and say something anyway, but my kids were having none of it and wouldn't even look at me. Since then, our kids have barely communicated with us and are not coming out of their rooms. Except for school and extracurriculars, we are making dinner, which are being eaten in silence in different rooms. What was on this tape? Like, dang. I feel like it's awkward for any child to think about their parents, being sexually active, but dang, I need to know what was on this tape. It has been almost a week, and I feel like I need to do something, but my wife keeps begging me not to bring it up, and my children won't even look at me. What should I do? Update 1. October 24th, 2019. It wouldn't let me post this earlier this morning, so I'm posting it now during lunch. In my last post, I got some great advice and some laughably terrible advice, but I followed some of the former to initially good effect. After some back and forth with the wife, I put my foot down and decided we were going to have a sit down as a family and talk this out. She was quite upset, but I told her this would be best. I texted everyone in the morning. I start work early to let them know to come home on time today because we needed to clear the air and have a proper adult discussion, no disappearing into rooms. My daughter agreed, and so did my son, although he had the condition that it not be in the living room, which was fine. Okay, I'm trying to figure out what happened in the living room. Like, let me find out they did their due in the living room. Let me find out, because why else would he say he didn't want to have the discussion in the living room? And how come they all been staying in the room? Like, I get not wanting to see them, but like, did y'all do that? Let me find out. I went on and essentially explained to them that consenting adults, especially those who are married and happy together, shouldn't be shamed for whatever they have decided they enjoy. It is unfair to judge someone else, and they need to learn as they grow older that not everyone will adhere to what they think is normal. They can dislike something personally, but it is wrong to hate someone else because of it. My son started to get angry, but not just at us, but also his sister. She apparently told her best friend, who is also her cousin, who then told people at school. Apparently, my son has been getting made fun of at school because of it, and he's obviously very upset. My wife became enraged at our daughter and quite hysterical, and I actually removed her from the situation, not physically, but told her to leave and cool off. I was upset too, but shouting wouldn't solve anything. I told my daughter that she was in a deep trouble for doing that and asked my son if he had told anyone, and he said no, which I believe. I took my daughter's phone and laptop as punishment and grounded her for until the end of the school year, but that is really just plugging a hole in the hole while the ship is on fire. She stormed off up to her room, which is where she will stay. He is annoying for that. I asked my son why he didn't mention anything to me about the bullying, and he told me it was my fault and he didn't want to talk to me at all. It's really on him for running his mouth, but he's a kid, so we're gonna give grace. I asked what they were saying, but he wouldn't go into detail, just that they would call him names and throw things at him. Fruit, apparently. His friends were sticking up for him, though, which I was happy to hear. He then said some disrespectful things about me and his mother, which I understood because he was angry, but I couldn't excuse, so I also took his electronics off him and grounded him. He still blamed me for the tape, but I told him he wasn't in trouble for finding it. He was in trouble for being a disrespectful little shit. He stormed off to his room, which is where he will stay to for a while. I cannot with that. I went upstairs to my wife and she was obviously extremely upset. I held her and she cried for a while and blamed herself before she eventually calmed down enough to talk. She realized that if the cousin knew, then my sister and husband probably knew too. She was sobbing at the thought of them spreading this to our family, religious types, and we decided to try and get ahead of this. I texted my sister asking her if she was free this weekend to stop by for coffee or something. She didn't reply immediately, though I know she saw the text, and eventually she responded saying that she rather wouldn't right now. So now my wife is depressed, saying that my family are going to hate her and shun us and we would lose our community presence. I feel like I need to talk to my sister just to make sure what she knows and ask her to keep it to herself even if I invite myself over. Does that seem like a good idea? Should I also talk to the school about my son and see if I can help out at all? My daughter didn't mention any bullying, but she might be taking heat for this too. Although we deleted all adult stuff we had on the laptops, and then I spent a good hour or so figuring out how to encrypt files, although my wife told me not to bother because it would never happen again. Ooh, I am looking at family therapy because I want us to go and talk to a professional about it. Dang, this is a lot. Okay, final update. So I wasn't going to post anything more, especially after the reception my last post received, but it's very early and I'm not doing anything for a while yet. I decided to let everyone know how it all turned out. Sorry to disappoint, but I haven't killed myself. Jesus. My children don't hate me and my life isn't in ruins. So for those of you who told me to neck myself, wow, the internet, and everyone who decided that my relationship with my children was ruined forever, I sincerely pity how terrible a relationship you have with your parents and hope you never breed. He's funny. Anyways, my last post yielded little advice and consisted mostly of people telling me how fucked up everything was. Shout out to you, Sabrina, for actually giving some advice. Oh, okay. So I decided to just ignore you all and do what I thought was best. I went to see my sister on Saturday morning, and when I arrived, she seemed surprised to see me, but invited me in anyway. She explained that her shortness over text was because she was dealing with her own problems with her/my children. She told me that cousin was being bullied by my daughter at school, apparently for no reason. I realized it must be about her blabbing about the tape, so I explained the situation, leaving out the contents of the tape, obviously, because I'm not stupid. She decided to punish her daughter for being disrespectful of someone indulging sensitive information, and we agreed that I would talk to my daughter about how wrong her behavior had been. Yes, she's religious, but she isn't insane and she doesn't judge me. As for the whole community finding out, well, it turns out that adults don't tend to believe children when they talk gossip. Shocking, I know. Hey, this is me, saw this when... What? Another update? This is like OP in 2023. Dang, this is a lot. Hey, this is me, saw this when browsing my main account. Crazy to see this post again. It was a tumultuous time. On the state of the family. So this is 4 years later. It'll disappoint a lot of people to hear this, but things have been just fine. The whole thing blew over and we were back to normal family not long afterwards. Oldest is almost finished college, youngest is soon beginning. Wife and I are stronger than ever. So this is about the daughter and the cousin/best friend. My daughter and her fell out and never quite made up properly, but they're family, so they have to see each other sometimes, and they seem to be on good terms. As for the rest of us, we forgave her and just moved on. Kids do silly things sometimes, and we were just happy to have this whole thing disappear. Okay, so what would y'all do and how would you handle it? Do you think they handled it in a good way? And yeah, let me find another juicy post.